Hello, sleepy soul. The night is quiet, the world is asleep, and something is waiting in the dark. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel and write your country and current time in the comments. Now listen carefully. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to see something familiar suddenly turn wrong? I mean, so wrong that your brain keeps trying to explain it away, but deep down, it's not normal. That's exactly what happened to me during the June heat wave 2 summers ago. And even now, thinking back, I still can't fully convince myself it wasn't real. My name's Daniel. I was 15 at the time, living in a small town in central Ohio. Nothing exciting ever happened there. Quiet streets, well-kept lawns, old maple trees lining the sidewalks. I was just a regular kid. School was about to end, and I spent most of my days biking around with my little brother, Sam, and a couple of friends. My parents were both teachers, so they worked long hours, which meant Sam and I were often home alone during the day. Life felt safe, even boring, honestly. That June, though, something felt off right from the start. The heat wave had been breaking records all week. Temperatures hovered near 105 degrees, the kind of heat where your skin sticks to the bike seat, and every breeze feels like it's coming from a hairdryer. People in town were grumpy, exhausted, almost delirious. The local news kept warning about heat stroke, dehydration, and the dangers of leaving kids outside for too long. I remember it clearly because that morning, Sam had been unusually quiet, sitting on the porch steps while I watered the flowers. Then I heard it, the faint tinkle of music, like a distant ice cream truck jingle. I paused. "Sam," I said, "do you hear that?" He looked up at me, eyes wide, and nodded slowly. "It's the ice cream truck." I frowned. It didn't feel right. We weren't supposed to have ice cream trucks in our neighborhood yet. Usually they only came on weekends, not weekday mornings. And this one sounded wrong, like it was coming from nowhere. I shrugged it off. Maybe someone's playing music on a speaker somewhere. But over the next few days, it happened again. Every afternoon, right around 2 o'clock, that same music would drift faintly down our street. And every time, someone in town would act weird. First, it was little things. Mrs. Keller at the grocery store staring at me like she didn't recognize me, her hands shaking as she bagged groceries. Then more serious incidents. Kids wandering into traffic, adults collapsing in their yards, shouting incoherently. The heat was blamed for everything. Heat stroke, they said. Dehydration. But I started noticing a pattern. Every person who flipped out, every kid who wandered, every adult who seemed off had heard the music first. Always the music. It was Sam who made it personal. One night, I woke up at 2 a.m. to the faint, tinny sound drifting through our open window. I rubbed my eyes, thinking I was dreaming. But then I realized Sam wasn't in his bed. I ran into the hallway. "Sam!" My voice was panicked, whispering, because the house was silent except for that cursed melody. "Daniel." His voice came from outside, soft and dreamlike. I opened the front door just in time to see him walking barefoot across the lawn, eyes half closed, muttering. He said, "It's my turn to cool down." My heart stopped. I sprinted to him and grabbed his arm. "Sam, what are you talking about? Come inside." He blinked, confused, like he had just woken up. I don't know. I was walking. I thought I heard ice cream." I pulled him inside, locked the door, and checked the windows. Everything was quiet again, but I knew it wouldn't last. That's when I realized the truck wasn't normal. It didn't appear on cameras. Neighbors didn't see it. It didn't drive down streets. But every person who could see it changed. Something about the heat seemed to amplify it, made you vulnerable to it. And the children, the ones with the most exposure, were the most sensitive. Over the next few days, I started keeping Sam inside during the hottest hours, closing blinds, and trying to drown out the music with fans. But no matter what I did, I could hear it faintly through the walls, like a mocking whisper, tugging at the edges of my sanity. It was on the 4th night that things got truly terrifying. My parents were away at a conference in Cleveland. Sam and I were alone, trying to sleep in the living room because our AC couldn't keep up with the heat. Around midnight, a soft tapping began from the basement door. At first, I told myself it was just the house settling. Old pipes, maybe. Then came the voice. Soft, familiar, almost sweet. Daniel. I froze. That wasn't my mother or father. That was someone pretending to be them. Someone who knew exactly what my parents sounded like. Sam, I whispered. The little boy was shaking, holding his blanket like it was a shield. He's downstairs. I wanted to laugh at my own paranoia, but the soft shuffle of movement from the basement stairs made me freeze. Every nerve screamed that I wasn't imagining this. Whoever or whatever it had gotten inside the house. And it was patient. I grabbed my phone, but no signal. The heat must have fried the towers, because even calls to 911 wouldn't go through. My hands were slick with sweat as I tried to think. I could hear my own heart pounding. The tapping continued, and then the voice started naming us, one by one. First Sam, then me. Softly, coaxingly. Daniel. Sam, come downstairs. I backed away, dragging Sam with me, trying to think. That's when I remembered my friend Lucas had told me about a neighbor who had disappeared last year during a similar heat wave. The man was supposedly collected by some ice cream truck that no one could track. Everyone laughed at the story, everyone except me. I barricaded the basement door with a chair, a lamp, anything I could push in front of it. But the voice didn't stop. It whispered from the other side. You don't have to be afraid. Just come play. It's so hot up here. Come cool down. I couldn't move. Sam was crying quietly. I could feel my pulse in my ears, my hands trembling. Every second felt stretched, like time itself was conspiring against me. Finally, I realized the only way to survive was to get out. I grabbed Sam, and we bolted through the back door into the pitch-black backyard. The air was thick, stifling, almost suffocating in its warmth. My sneakers slapped against the hot pavement. I could hear the faint tinkle of the ice cream truck music, following us, distant but always present. We ran to the neighbor's house, the Johnsons. I pounded on the door, yelling, "Help! Please!" Mrs. Johnson opened the door in her bathrobe, eyes wide. "Daniel, what's going on?" "The basement. The music. Something's in my house." Her husband appeared, flashlight in hand, and we all stood on the porch listening. The music faded, but it lingered in the corners of my mind like a shadow. The police came eventually, responding to calls from neighbors who had seen us running. They searched the house, the street, even the woods behind our neighborhood. Nothing. No tracks. No truck. Just the oppressive heat and the lingering sense that something had been inside, something patient, something that watched us sleep. The next day, Sam refused to leave my side. He didn't speak much, just clung to me whenever the wind carried the faintest melody. And every time the ice cream truck music played somewhere far away, we both froze. Months later, I read about other heatwave incidents in towns hundreds of miles away. Same story. Children wandering, adults confused, an unseen vehicle playing music that no one else could hear. None of the authorities could explain it. Even now, years later, when the heat hits that same oppressive mark in June, I lock my windows tight, triple-check the doors, and keep Sam close. Because I know it's out there, waiting, patient. And it doesn't just collect ice cream. It collects people. Sometimes the scariest part isn't what happened. It's knowing it could happen again. If your gut tells you something is wrong, even in your own home, listen. Because whatever is patient enough to wait until the hottest hour of the day doesn't need a reason. It only needs an opportunity. And sometimes, that opportunity looks like a familiar voice calling your name from a basement door you were told never to open. You'd think this only happens in movies. I wish I could still believe that, but I can't, because I still hear it, and I know it will be back. Story 2. Have you ever looked at something with your name on it and felt relieved? A mailbox, a work schedule, a coffee cup, a birthday card. It sounds stupid, but after what happened to me, I still check for my name wherever I go. Apartment directories, reservation lists, even group chats. I check because I know what it feels like when the world starts quietly making space for you to disappear. My name is Daniel Mercer. I was 26 when this happened, living in an old apartment building in Cincinnati, Ohio, called the Ellison. It wasn't one of those luxury buildings with rooftop lounges and glass walls. It was the kind of place with faded green carpet in the halls, yellow lighting, radiators that hissed in winter, and an elevator that looked like it belonged in a hospital from the 70s. The building was 12 floors tall, brick, narrow, and always slightly colder inside than outside. I moved there because it was cheap and close to my job. I worked nights at a printing warehouse, mostly loading boxes and checking orders. My life was quiet. I'd sleep late, microwave leftovers, take the elevator down at 6:30, walk 3 blocks to the bus stop, work until 2 in the morning, come home, and do it again. Honestly, I liked the building at first. It was old, but it had character. Mrs. Alvarez on the 5th floor left plants by her door. A guy named Theo on 7 always smelled like cigarette smoke and laundry detergent. The lobby had these brass mailboxes lined along one wall, each with little plastic name labels taped under the numbers. Mine said, 804, Daniel Mercer. I remember noticing that the first day I moved in. It made the place feel official, like I belonged there. The first time I heard about June 10th, I thought it was just building gossip. It was early June, my second month there. I was in the laundry room at around midnight, waiting for my clothes to dry, when an older man came in carrying a basket of towels. His name was Arthur. He lived on the 3rd floor and always wore the same gray cardigan, even when it was warm out. He nodded at me and said, "You been here for a June 10th yet?" I looked up from my phone. "What? June 10th, he said. "Building gets funny." I laughed a little because I thought he was joking. "Funny how?" Arthur loaded his towels into a washer slowly, like he was deciding how much to say. "Elevator runs all night," he said. "Stops on every floor. Doors open. Nobody inside." I waited for the punchline. He didn't give one. Then he said, "People leave around then." "People move out?" He looked at me for a second. "Something like that." I wanted to laugh at my own paranoia, but the whisper of footsteps from the hallway made me freeze, every nerve screaming that I was not imagining this. The laundry room door was open behind Arthur, and beyond it was the basement hallway. Long, narrow, concrete walls painted beige, with pipes running along the ceiling. I heard footsteps down there, slow ones, like someone dragging their feet. Arthur heard them too. His face changed just slightly. He shut the washer lid and said, "Dry your clothes upstairs." I smiled awkwardly. "They're not done." "Then leave them." He picked up his empty basket and walked out without another word. I told myself it was nothing. Old people say strange things. Old buildings make strange sounds. Elevators are machines, and machines break. That was the logical explanation. But 2 nights later, I was coming home from work at about 2:30 in the morning when I saw something that stuck with me. The lobby was empty, except for the elevator. The doors were open. That alone wasn't weird. People forget to press buttons. Elevators sit open sometimes. But the inside light was flickering, and on the back wall of the elevator, someone had written a date in black marker. June 10th. The letters were shaky. Not like graffiti from a teenager. More like someone had written it in the dark with a bad hand. I stood there holding my backpack, staring at it. Then the elevator bell dinged. The doors closed. I took the stairs. For the next few days, I noticed little things. The building directory in the lobby had names I didn't recognize, but when I asked people about them, they acted like they'd always been there. A door on the 6th floor that I was sure had belonged to a woman named Claire suddenly had no name on it. Her welcome mat was gone. Her little Halloween skeleton wreath, which she had kept up way too long, was gone too. I asked Theo about her when I ran into him by the mailboxes. "Claire from 6. I said. He frowned. "Who?" "The woman with the brown dog. Curly hair. She used to take the elevator with us." Theo shook his head. "Don't know her." I thought he was messing with me. But then Mrs. Alvarez walked by with a bag of groceries, and I asked her too. She gave me this polite, confused smile. "Honey, I've lived here 18 years. There's never been a Claire on 6. That was the first time I felt it. Not fear exactly. More like the floor under my life had shifted half an inch. On June 8th, I went to the leasing office. The manager was a woman named Patrice, probably in her 40s, always perfectly dressed, always smiling like she was dealing with a customer complaint at a hotel. I told her I was trying to reach a tenant named Claire, but nobody remembered her. Patrice typed something into her computer. What apartment? Maybe 612. I'm not sure. She clicked around. There's no Claire in 612. Was there before? She glanced at me. Before when? Like recently. No, she said. That unit has been vacant since February. I stared at her. That's impossible. I saw her last week. Patrice's smile faded a little, but not in a scared way. More annoyed. Mr. Mercer, sometimes tenants get confused about floors, especially in a building this size. I left feeling embarrassed and angry. The street looked ordinary, quiet, even comforting, but my gut told me something was off. I'd learned too late that danger often wears a friendly face. That night, I searched online for the building. Mostly old rental listings came up, then newspaper archives, then a scanned article from 1973. The Ellison Apartments opened June 10th. There was a black and white photo of construction workers standing in front of the building, hard hats on, smiling. I almost clicked away, but something in the caption caught my eye. The building was completed after several delays, including an unresolved workplace accident involving a missing laborer. Missing. Not dead. Not injured. Missing. His name was Raymond Hask, 29 years old. Married. One daughter. Last seen on site during final interior work. The article said crews believed he may have left the job, but his family insisted he wouldn't have disappeared voluntarily. I kept digging. There wasn't much. Just one smaller article a week later saying authorities had searched the property and found no evidence of foul play. But on an old forum about Cincinnati history, someone had posted a comment years ago. My uncle worked that site. Said a guy got sealed in during construction. They knew but didn't want to tear the place open before opening day. Building opened June 10th anyway. I leaned back from my laptop. That was the kind of thing that sounds fake because it's too perfect. Too much like an urban legend. Still, I didn't sleep much. On June 9th, things got worse. I woke up to 3 missed calls from my sister, Emily. When I called her back, she sounded distracted. "Who is this?" she asked. I laughed. "Very funny." There was a pause. "I'm sorry. Who's calling?" My mouth went dry. "Eminesia. It's Daniel." Another pause. Then she said slowly, "Daniel who?" I thought she was joking for about 2 seconds. Then I heard the uncertainty in her voice. "Your brother," I said. She laughed nervously. "I don't have a brother." I hung up. I called my mother. Straight to voicemail. I texted her. "Mom, call me. Something weird is happening." The message sent. Then the thread disappeared. Not deleted. Not hidden. Gone. I opened my contacts. Mom was gone. Emily was gone. My dad, who had died years earlier, was still there as an old number I never deleted. But the living people were disappearing first. I checked my work group chat. My name was missing from next week's schedule. I called my supervisor, Mike. He answered, irritated. "Hello. Mike, it's Daniel." "Who?" I sat on the edge of my bed, unable to breathe right. "Daniel Mercer. Night shift. Printing line 3. He was quiet. Then he said, "Man, I don't know who this is, but I'm busy." I ended the call. That was when I understood something Arthur had been trying to tell me. People didn't disappear first. They were forgotten first. I ran downstairs to find him. The third-floor hallway smelled like boiled cabbage and old carpet. I knocked on Arthur's door so hard my knuckles hurt. No answer. I tried again. "Arthur? It's Daniel. Please open the door." The door across the hall opened, and a young woman looked out. "Can I help you? Do you know Arthur? The older man who lives here." She frowned. "That apartment's empty." "No, it's not." She looked uncomfortable. "I've lived here 2 years. Nobody's lived there." I stared at Arthur's door. There was no name on it. No gray doormat. No little brass cross he used to keep taped above the peephole. I backed away. My heart sank into my stomach as the door clicked shut behind me, and I realized I was completely alone. Someone was watching, and I had no way out. I went to the lobby. The mailboxes were lined up in their usual neat rows. I walked straight to mine. The little plastic label was empty. My name was gone. Not peeled off. Not scratched out. Just gone like it had never been there. I don't know how long I stood there. The lobby was quiet except for the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Outside, traffic moved normally. People walked past the glass doors with coffees, backpacks, dogs. The whole world kept going, and I was standing there realizing it had already started letting me go. I went back to my apartment and packed a bag. I didn't have a plan. I just knew I couldn't stay until midnight. I threw clothes, my wallet, my laptop, and my birth certificate into a duffel bag. I kept checking my phone, watching things vanish in real time. Photos of my sister and me were still there, but her face looked blurred in some of them. My name and old emails started showing as blank. My bank app gave an error when I tried to log in. At 11:18 p.m., I left apartment 804. I took the stairs. I didn't trust the elevator. The stairwell smelled damp, like concrete after rain. My footsteps echoed too loudly. By the time I reached the 7th floor, I was sweating through my shirt. Then, below me, I heard the elevator bell. Ding. Doors opened somewhere on 6. Then closed. Ding. 5th floor. Open. Close. Ding. 4th floor. It was moving without being called. I froze on the stairs, hand gripping the railing. Then another sound came. Not from the elevator. From inside the wall. A soft scrape, like fingernails dragging over drywall. I ran. I made it to the lobby at 11:41. The front doors were right there. Glass doors. Street lights outside. Freedom. I grabbed the handle and pulled. Locked. The Ellisons' front doors were never locked from the inside. Never. I pulled again, harder. Nothing. I slammed my palm against the glass and shouted at a man walking by outside. He didn't even look over. I could see him. He was close enough that I could read the logo on his jacket. But he didn't hear me. Or maybe by then, I was already too forgotten to notice. Behind me, the elevator dinged. The doors opened. Empty. The inside light flickered. I backed away. Then every mailbox in the lobby opened at once. All those little brass doors fell open with a metallic clatter, row after row, like teeth snapping loose. Papers slid out onto the floor. Old envelopes. Yellowed notices. Rent checks. Birthday cards. Things that should have been delivered decades ago. One envelope landed near my shoe. It was addressed to Raymond Hask, care of the Ellison. No unit number. The stamp was from 1973. I could feel my pulse in my ears, my hands trembling as I fumbled for the keys. Every second felt stretched, like time itself was conspiring against me. I don't know why I took the envelope. Maybe because it had his name. Maybe because mine was gone and I needed proof that names mattered. The elevator bell dinged again. This time, from inside the elevator, someone whispered, "Daniel." It didn't sound like a ghost in a movie. It sounded like a man speaking through a wall. Muffled. Dry. Close. I ran to the emergency exit near the mailroom. The alarm should have screamed when I pushed the bar. It didn't. The door opened into the back service hallway. For a second, I thought I was out. Then the door clicked shut behind me. The hallway was longer than it should have been. No windows. No exit sign. Just concrete walls and pipes overhead, like the basement hallway from the laundry room. I turned back and grabbed the handle. No handle. Just flat metal. That was when I heard breathing inside the wall. Not one breath. Many. Slow, tired, patient breaths. I started walking because standing still felt worse. The hallway seemed to tilt downward. The air got colder. I passed doors with numbers I didn't recognize. 1204, 303. 804, 804 again. Then doors with no numbers at all. Behind one door, a woman sobbed softly. Behind another, someone knocked 3 times. Then I saw Arthur. He was standing at the end of the hall in his gray cardigan, holding his laundry basket. I almost cried with relief. "Arthur." He looked at me sadly. "You waited too long," he said. "What is this?" "The building doesn't take who it wants," he said. "It takes who nobody is holding on to." "That's not true," I said. "My family. You called them too late." I shook my head. "Help me." Arthur looked past me. The elevator was there now, somehow, at the end of the hallway behind me. Its doors were open. Inside stood a man in dusty work clothes. His skin was gray with plaster dust. His helmet was cracked. His face was thin, not rotten, not bloody, just impossibly tired. Like he had been awake in the dark for 50 years. He didn't look angry. That made it worse. Arthur whispered, "Don't let him learn your whole name." The man in the elevator opened his mouth. I ran. Not toward Arthur. Not toward the elevator. I slammed my shoulder into one of the unmarked doors, and it gave way. I fell into the mailroom. Real mailroom. Normal mailroom. The emergency exit was behind me, alarm blaring now, loud enough to hurt. I scrambled to my feet and ran at the front doors. This time they opened. I stumbled out onto the sidewalk just as midnight hit. Behind me, the elevator bell dinged on every floor at once. I didn't look back until I was across the street. The Ellison stood there quiet and dark, except for one window on the 8th floor. My apartment. Someone was standing behind the glass. I couldn't see the face clearly, just the outline of a man in a hard hat. And beside him, reflected faintly in the window, was me. Or something shaped like me. I ran until I threw up behind a gas station. The police didn't believe me, obviously. When I gave them my name, there was no active lease at the Ellison. No record of me in apartment 804. My ID still existed, but the address on file came back blank. My job said I'd never worked there. My mother cried when I finally reached her, but not because she remembered me. She cried because some stranger was on the phone calling her mom. It took weeks before she started to believe I was telling the truth. Not because she remembered. She never did. But because I knew things a stranger couldn't know. My sister never fully accepted it. I don't blame her. How do you accept a brother you don't remember having? It's been 3 years. I live in another city now. I rent a room from a man who only knows me as Dan. No full name on the mailbox. No apartment buildings with elevators. I keep copies of my documents in 3 places. Every June, I call the people I care about before the 10th and make them say my name out loud. Most of them think it's a weird habit. That's fine. I still dream about the Ellison. In the dream, I'm standing in the lobby while all the mailboxes hang open. The elevator doors slide apart, and Arthur is inside, staring down at his empty laundry basket. Sometimes he says, "You forgot someone." Sometimes he says nothing. Last year, on June 10th, I searched the Ellison online. The building is still there. The rental listing says it was renovated recently. New paint, updated lobby, modern security system. In one of the photos, they show the mailboxes. Most of the labels are blurry, but on the bottom row, Unit 804 is clear. The label is blank. And standing in the reflection of the brass mailbox doors, behind the photographer, is a man in a cracked hard hat. Even after escaping, even with the safety of distance and years behind me, a small, cold part of me couldn't stop replaying the face I'd seen through the window. The calm, empty eyes that didn't blink. Sometimes the scariest part isn't being taken. It's realizing how easy it is for the world to stop remembering you were ever there. So if you live alone, especially in an old building, do me one favor. Check your mailbox. Check your door. Check the little places where your name is supposed to be. And if one morning it's gone, don't wait until midnight. Because by then, someone may already be opening the elevator doors, floor by floor, looking for the person nobody remembers. Story 3. Have you ever heard your name called over a school speaker when you knew, for a fact, nobody was left in the office? I don't mean one of those half-broken intercom sounds where it crackles and you think you heard something. I mean your full name, clear as day, coming from the ceiling while every hallway around you is empty. My name is Aaron Keller. I was 17 when this happened, in a small town in Ohio that most people only passed through on their way somewhere else. At the time, I was a junior at Westbridge High School. It was one of those old brick schools with faded trophy cases, yellowish hallway lights, and ceiling tiles stained from leaks nobody ever really fixed. Nothing about that school felt scary during the day. It was just school. Loud, annoying, boring. Kids slamming lockers. Teachers yelling for people to stop running. The cafeteria smelling like fries and cleaning spray. Normal stuff. But on the last day before summer break, after everyone leaves, a school becomes a completely different place. That's what people don't understand. A building that held almost 1,000 students all year suddenly goes quiet, and the quiet doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like something got left behind. That afternoon, 6 of us stayed after to help clean the drama room. Me, my best friend Jordan, a girl named Riley, twins named Marcus and Devin, and our drama teacher, Mrs. Hanley. We were all in the spring play that year, and Mrs. Hanley promised us pizza if we helped throw out old props, fold costumes, and move boxes into storage. The last bell had rung around 2:35. By 3:15, the school was almost dead. You could still hear a few lockers closing somewhere far away, a janitor's cart squeaking, maybe one basketball bouncing in the gym. By 4 o'clock, even that was gone. Mrs. Hanley had to leave early because her son had a dentist appointment. She apologized about 20 times and told us we could finish the last few boxes ourselves. "Office is closing soon," she said, standing in the doorway with her purse over her shoulder. "So once you're done, go straight out the side doors by the auditorium. Don't wander." Jordan saluted her with a foam sword from one of the prop bins. "Yes, Captain." She gave him the look teachers give when they're too tired to care. "I'm serious. Last day or not, I don't want calls from the principal because one of you idiots got locked in." We laughed. She left. And for a while, everything was normal. We had music playing from Riley's phone. Marcus and Devin were arguing over which props were trash and which were historically important, even though one of those props was just a plastic skull with glitter on it. Jordan kept trying on random costume pieces and doing terrible voices. At around 4:30, Riley's phone died and the room got quiet. Not completely silent. There was the buzz of fluorescent lights, the soft clatter of hangers, the distant hum of the air conditioner. But without music, we started noticing how empty the school felt. The drama room was in the back hallway near the auditorium, far from the main entrance. It had no windows, just a black painted wall, shelves of props, and a storage closet that always smelled like dust and old fabric. The hallway outside had those gray-blue lockers nobody used anymore, and a row of framed cast photos from plays going back decades. That was where I first noticed her picture. I had seen it before, probably 100 times, but I never paid attention. It was a staff photo from the late 80s, hanging crooked near the auditorium doors. In the second row stood a woman with short brown hair, round glasses, and a serious face. Under the picture, someone had typed the names on a little yellowed label. Mrs. Evelyn Crane, English Department. Riley saw me looking. "You know about her?" she asked. "Who?" "Mrs. Crane." I shook my head. "She died here," Riley said, lowering her voice. Marcus looked over. "Don't start." "I'm not joking." Jordan grinned. "Perfect. Last day of school ghost story. Go on." Riley told us Mrs. Crane had been a teacher at Westbridge years before we were born. She stayed late after school one June day, the last day before summer break, and had some kind of medical emergency in room 204. A student found her the next morning. After that, people said the intercom would sometimes turn on by itself at the end of the school year. Devin laughed. "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." "It's true," Riley said. "The intercom in this building barely works when living people use it," Marcus said. I remember laughing too. Not because it was funny, but because it felt better than admitting the hallway suddenly felt colder. I told myself it was nothing. Just an old school, old stories, and a bunch of tired kids trying to make the last day more interesting. Then the intercom crackled. Every one of us stopped. The sound came from the little beige speaker mounted high in the corner of the drama room. It gave a burst of static, then a woman's voice came through. "Attention! Would Mr. Walsh please report to room 204? We all stared at the speaker. The voice sounded old-fashioned somehow. Not because of what she said, but because of the tone. Flat, calm, and formal, like a secretary from some black and white school film. Jordan laughed first. "No way!" Riley's face had gone pale. Marcus walked to the door and looked into the hallway. "Hello!" The hallway was empty. I checked the time on my phone. 4:47. "Maybe the office is still open," I said, even though I didn't believe it. "Who's Mr. Walsh?" Devin asked. Nobody knew. The intercom clicked off. For a minute, none of us moved. Then Jordan grabbed the foam sword again and pointed it at the speaker. "Mrs. Crane, if you're listening, we don't know Mr. Walsh." "Stop," Riley said. He smirked. "Relax. It was probably a test." But his voice didn't sound as confident as before. We went back to cleaning, only slower now. Everyone kept glancing at the speaker. Every scrape of a box on the floor made someone look up. About 10 minutes later, the intercom crackled again. "Attention! Jordan Blake, please report to room 204. Jordan froze with both hands on a cardboard box. Nobody laughed this time. The speaker clicked off. Jordan stared at us. "Which one of you did that? How would we do that?" Marcus said, "I don't know. Your phone or something." Riley shook her head. "You can't use your phone to hack the school intercom, genius." Jordan dropped the box. "I'm checking the office." "No," I said. He looked at me. "What? You think I'm going to room 204? Just don't go alone." That was the first real mistake we almost made. Splitting up. But we didn't. All 6 of us walked together down the back hallway toward the main office. The whole school had that late afternoon smell, warm dust and floor wax. Our footsteps sounded too loud. Every locker we passed gave back a dull echo. The main office was locked. Lights off. A paper sign was taped inside the glass. Closed for summer. "See you in August." Jordan pulled on the door anyway. It didn't budge. "Okay," he said quietly. "That's weird." Devin pointed down the hall. "Security office?" Our school had a small room near the main entrance where the resource officer and security monitors were. We went there next. Also locked. But through the narrow window, we could see the camera screens still on. 12 little views of empty hallways, stairwells, entrances, and the cafeteria. Riley leaned close to the glass. "Can you see room 204? "No classroom cameras," Marcus said. "Just hallways." Then we saw movement on one screen. A figure walking down the second-floor hallway. Jordan. My stomach dropped. He was on the screen, walking away from the camera toward room 204. But Jordan was standing beside me. I looked at him. He looked at the screen. None of us spoke. The Jordan on the monitor walked stiffly, arms at his sides, head facing forward. Same red hoodie. Same black backpack slung over one shoulder. He reached the end of the hallway, turned left, and disappeared out of frame. The real Jordan whispered, "That's not funny." The intercom above the main hallway clicked on. "Jordan Blake has reported." Jordan backed away from the security office door. His face changed in a way I had never seen before. All the jokes were gone. He looked like a little kid trying not to cry. We ran back to the drama room. I know that sounds stupid, but we didn't know what else to do. The side doors were by the auditorium, near the drama room. We figured we'd grab our stuff and leave. When we got there, the door was closed. We had left it open. My heart sank into my stomach as the door clicked shut behind me, and I realized the building felt too quiet, like someone had been moving around while we were gone. Marcus reached for the handle. Riley grabbed his wrist. "Wait." We listened. From inside the drama room came the sound of hangers moving. Soft, slow, one after another. Clink. 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 Jordan whispered, "Nope." We left our stuff. We turned toward the auditorium exit and started walking fast. Not running yet. Just that ugly speed walk people do when they're trying not to panic. Then the intercom crackled. "Riley Patterson, please report to room 204. Riley stopped so suddenly I bumped into her. "No," she said. The hallway lights flickered once. Somewhere above us, an old speaker hummed. Then we heard footsteps from the far end of the hall. Not behind us. Ahead of us. The side exit was only about 50 feet away, but between us and that exit was a stretch of hallway where the lights had gone dim. At the end of it, near the auditorium doors, stood a woman. She was far enough away that I couldn't see details at first. Just the shape of her. Straight posture, knee-length skirt, short hair, hands folded in front of her. She looked like someone from an old staff photo. Jordan whispered, "Run." We turned the other way. That was when panic finally took over. We ran past the drama room, past the trophy cases, toward the main stairs. Riley was crying. Devin kept saying, "This isn't happening," over and over, like if he repeated it enough, reality would fix itself. At the stairwell, Marcus shoved the door open. It slammed into something, or someone. The door moved only a few inches, then stopped. Through the crack, I saw a strip of hallway on the other side, and a hand pressed flat against the glass window of the stairwell door. Old hand, pale skin, thin fingers. The intercom clicked. "Riley Patterson has reported." Riley screamed. I turned to look at her. She was gone. Not dragged away. Not running. Not hiding. Gone. 1 second she was beside me, gripping my sleeve so tightly it hurt. The next second, my sleeve was loose, and the hallway where she had been standing was empty. Jordan fell back against the lockers. "Where is she?" Nobody answered. The speaker crackled again. "Marcus Lee, please report to room 204. Marcus started shaking his head. No. No. Devin grabbed his brother by the shoulders. "Don't listen. Don't move. We have to get out," I said. I pulled out my phone and called 911. No signal. Not one bar. Jordan tried too. Same thing. Devin's phone showed SOS for 1 second, then nothing. We ran toward the gym entrance because there was an emergency exit near the bleachers. The school around us felt wrong now, like the hallways had stretched. Doors I knew should have been open were locked. The ceiling lights buzzed louder. The walls seemed too clean, too empty. I wanted to laugh at my own paranoia, but the whisper of footsteps from the hallway behind us made me freeze, every nerve screaming that I was not imagining this. The footsteps were calm, not chasing, following. We reached the gym doors. Locked. That made no sense. The gym doors were never locked from the hallway side. Devin kicked them. "Open!" The intercom said, "Marcus Lee has reported." Devin spun around. Marcus was gone. Devin made a sound that barely sounded human. He ran back the way we came, screaming his brother's name. I tried to grab him, but Jordan pulled me back. "Don't!" Devin disappeared around the corner. The intercom crackled almost immediately. "Devin Lee, please report to room 204. Jordan and I stood there, breathing hard, staring at the corner. We heard Devin yell once. Not in pain. More like surprise. Then silence. The speaker clicked. "Devin Lee has reported." Jordan started crying then. Quietly, his shoulders shaking. I had known him since 4th grade, and had never seen him like that. The street outside looked ordinary through the narrow window by the gym exit. Quiet, even comforting, with late sunlight on the parking lot and the empty buses lined up near the curb. But my gut told me something was off. I'd learned too late that danger often wears a friendly face, and sometimes it sounds like a teacher telling you where to go. The emergency exit had a crash bar. I shoved it. Nothing. Jordan shoved it with me. Still nothing. A red alarm box above it blinked, but no alarm sounded. Then the intercom said my name. "Aaron Keller, please report to room 204. I don't know how to explain what that felt like. It wasn't just fear. It felt personal, like the building had finally turned its attention toward me. Jordan looked at me with wide, wet eyes. "Don't move," he whispered. But the hallway lights went out behind him one by one. Click, click, click. Darkness walking toward us. I could feel my pulse in my ears, my hands trembling, as I fumbled for my keys, even though I knew they wouldn't help. Every second felt stretched, like time itself was conspiring against me. Then I remembered the old theater exit. Behind the auditorium stage, there was a loading door used for sets. It led to a small alley by the dumpsters. Sometimes it stuck, but it opened from inside. I grabbed Jordan's arm and pulled him. We ran. The auditorium was pitch black except for the red exit signs glowing above the doors. Rows of empty seats watched us from the dark. The stage curtains hung half open, and the air smelled like dust, wood, and old paint. Halfway across the stage, the intercom inside the auditorium crackled. It shouldn't have. There was no speaker on the stage, but the voice came from everywhere. Aaron Keller has not reported. Jordan and I froze. A woman stood in the front row. Closed now. Mrs. Crane. I knew it was her from the photo. Same short brown hair. Same glasses. Same stiff posture. Her face was pale and calm, not angry, not smiling. Just waiting. Jordan whispered, "Aaron." I backed toward the loading door. Mrs. Crane turned her head slightly toward him. "Jordan Blake," she said, not through the intercom this time. Her voice came from her mouth, soft and dry. "You have already reported." Jordan's hand slipped out of mine. I turned just in time to see him standing under a red exit sign, staring past me at something I couldn't see. "Jordan." He didn't respond. He took one step backward into the darkness between the curtains. Then he was gone. I screamed his name until my throat hurt. The loading door was behind me. I hit the push bar with both hands. It didn't move. I hit it again. Nothing. Behind me, the woman's shoes tapped against the stage floor. Slow. Measured. I slammed my shoulder into the door. Once. Twice. On the third time, something cracked in the frame. Cold air rushed through a thin gap. I threw myself against it again, and the door burst open. I fell outside into the alley, landing hard on the concrete behind the school. The sun was still up. Birds were chirping. Somewhere nearby, a lawnmower was running. The normal world was right there, acting like nothing had happened. I ran to the street and didn't stop until I reached a gas station 2 blocks away. I burst through the door covered in dust, crying so hard I could barely talk. The cashier called 911. The police came. Then my parents. Then Riley's parents. Jordan's mom. The twins' dad. They searched the school for hours. They found our backpacks in the drama room. They found Riley's phone on the floor outside the auditorium. They found one of Marcus's shoes near the second-floor stairs. They found no forced entry, no signs of a prank, no broken intercom system, no evidence that any of my friends had left the building. The cameras were worse. The hallway cameras showed each of them walking calmly toward room 204 after their names were called. Riley, Marcus, Devin, Jordan, each one alone, each one looking straight ahead. But the camera never showed who called them, and it never showed where they went after turning the corner. Room 204 had been locked all summer. The key was in the principal's office. Inside, the room was empty. They questioned me for months. Some people thought I was lying. Some thought we planned something. Some said my friends ran away. But nobody could explain the videos. Nobody could explain the intercom logs either, because according to the school system, no announcement had been made after 3:02 p.m. Westbridge High closed for 2 weeks, then reopened for summer programs like nothing had happened. I never went back. My parents transferred me to a school in another district for senior year. I stopped sleeping through the night. I stopped liking empty buildings. Even now, I can't hear a school bell or a crackling speaker without feeling cold in my chest. A year later, I got a message from Riley's younger sister. She sent me a photo. It was from Westbridge's hallway, near the auditorium, where they kept old class pictures and cast photos. At first I didn't understand what I was looking at. Then I saw it. A class photo I had never seen before. No title, no yearbook label. Just a group of students sitting in 3 neat rows in front of a gray backdrop. Riley was in the front row. Marcus and Devin were standing together in the back. Jordan was near the side, wearing the same red hoodie. And I was there too. Not fully, just barely visible at the edge of the picture, like I had stepped out of frame at the last second. Behind us stood Mrs. Crane. Her hands rested on Jordan's shoulders. Her eyes looked directly at the camera. I called the police again. They took the photo down. The school said it was probably some edited prank, even though nobody could find who printed it or how it got behind the locked glass display. 2 days later, it was back. Same place, same frame. Only this time, I was a little more inside the picture. Even after escaping, even with the safety of the police lights behind me that day, a small, cold part of me couldn't stop replaying the face I'd seen in the auditorium. The calm, empty eyes that didn't blink. It's been 6 years. Westbridge High was demolished last summer and replaced with a new building. People in town said it was overdue, that the old school had too many problems. Bad wiring, water damage, safety concerns. Maybe that's true, but I saw a news article about the demolition, and in one of the pictures, construction workers were carrying old framed photos out to a dumpster. On top of the pile was that extra class photo. I zoomed in until the image blurred. Riley, Marcus, Devin, Jordan, Mrs. Crane, and me, standing fully in the front row now, smiling like I belonged there. So if you're ever asked to stay after school on the last day before summer, don't. I don't care if it's for a teacher you trust. I don't care if it's just to clean up for 10 minutes. When a school is empty, it doesn't feel empty. It feels like it's waiting to see who stayed behind. Story 4. Have you ever been somewhere so quiet that the silence felt wrong? Not peaceful, not relaxing. Wrong. That's how I remember the lake house. My name is Daniel, and I was 19 when this happened. It was the first week of June about 6 years ago in a little lakeside town in northern Minnesota. I was home from college, broke, tired, and looking forward to doing absolutely nothing for a week. My mom's side of the family had rented this old lake house for a reunion. Nothing fancy, just a weathered 2-story cabin with a wraparound porch, a private dock, and a view that looked like it belonged on a postcard. During the day, it was beautiful. The lake was flat and silver in the mornings. Pine trees crowded the shore. The air smelled like damp wood, sunscreen, and charcoal smoke from the grill. My younger cousins ran around barefoot. My uncle fished from the dock with a beer next to his chair, and my mom kept saying, "This is exactly what we needed." There were 12 of us in total. My parents, my aunt and uncle, my grandparents, 3 younger cousins, my older sister Rachel, her boyfriend Mark, and me. The youngest cousin was Oliver. He was 8, skinny, curious, and constantly asking questions about everything. The owner of the lake house was an older man named Mr. Bell. He met us there on the first afternoon, driving up in a faded green pickup. He was polite but stiff. The kind of man who seemed like he'd rather hand you the keys and leave before anyone tried to make small talk. He showed us where the breaker box was, how to work the old stove, where extra blankets were stored, all the normal rental stuff. Then, just before he left, he pointed toward the lake and said, "No swimming after sunset." My uncle laughed and said, "Rocks?" Mr. Bell didn't laugh. "Rocks," he said. "Currents. Poor visibility. People think lakes are safer than they are." That sounded reasonable, so nobody questioned it. But as he climbed into his truck, he looked back at us and added, "And don't answer anyone calling from the dock after dark." I thought I misheard him. My mom said, "Sorry." He paused with his hand on the truck door. "Sound carries strangely over water," he said. "People hear things. Neighbors messing around, mostly. Best to ignore it." Then he got in and drove away. For the first 2 days, everything felt normal. We swam, grilled burgers, played cards, and complained about the mosquitoes. Except there weren't many mosquitoes. That was the first small thing I noticed. We were beside a lake in early June, surrounded by trees, and there were almost no bugs near the water. No gnats hovering above the surface. No dragonflies. No frogs croaking at night. Even my grandfather mentioned it. "Strangest lake I've ever seen," he said one evening, looking down from the porch. "Not even minnows." My uncle had tried fishing for hours and caught nothing. Not one bite. He blamed the weather, then the bait, then finally just said the lake was dead. I remember laughing at that. It didn't feel funny later. The third night was when we heard the footsteps. It was a little after midnight. Most of the adults had gone to bed. I was still downstairs with Rachel and Mark, watching some old movie with the volume low. The living room had big windows facing the lake, but at night they turned black, reflecting the room back at us. That was when we heard it. Step, step, step. Slow footsteps on the porch. Wet ones. Not the creak of dry shoes. More like bare feet slapping softly against wood. Rachel muted the TV. Mark sat up. Is someone out there? We listened. Step, step, step. The sound moved along the porch, passing right outside the windows. My heart sank into my stomach as the room went still, and I realized how alone that house felt once everyone else was asleep. The road was almost a mile back through the trees. The nearest cabin was across the lake. If someone was out there, they had walked a long way to get to us. Mark stood and flicked on the porch light. Nothing. Just empty rocking chairs, damp boards, and darkness beyond the railing. The lake sat perfectly still under the moon. Rachel tried to smile. Raccoon. But she didn't sound convinced. The next morning, there were wet footprints on the porch. Bare feet. Small ones. They went from the steps near the lake, across the porch, and stopped outside the living room window. My aunt said Oliver must have gone outside. Oliver swore he didn't. I was asleep, he said, looking offended. His mother checked his feet. Clean. Dry. No mud on his pajamas. My uncle said it was probably one of us sleepwalking. My dad told him not to be ridiculous. My grandmother crossed herself quietly when she thought no one was looking. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe one of the kids had walked outside earlier, and the footprints only showed after the dew settled. Maybe the porch had old marks that looked like feet. People do that when something doesn't make sense. They don't look for the truth first. They look for comfort. That afternoon, I noticed the second strange thing. The lake had no reflections. At least, not right. During the day, it reflected the trees and sky normally enough, but after dark, it changed. The moon would hang over the water, bright and clear, but the lake wouldn't show it. The windows of the house would glow behind me, but the lake stayed black. Not wavy, not distorted, just empty. I mentioned it to Rachel while we were washing dishes. She looked out the window for a long time. Then she said, "Don't tell Mom." That scared me more than if she had laughed. On the fourth night, Oliver waved from the dock. I was in the kitchen getting water. It was around 12:30, and the house was quiet except for the old refrigerator humming. I looked through the back window, mostly out of habit. A small figure stood at the end of the dock. I knew immediately it was Oliver. Same blue pajama shirt, same messy hair, same skinny arms. He was facing the house, waving, slowly. I froze with my hand on the glass. For one stupid second, I almost waved back. Then something in me tightened. Oliver wasn't supposed to be outside. None of us were. I ran upstairs and pushed open the door to the room where the younger cousins were sleeping. Oliver was in bed, asleep, curled on his side, mouth slightly open, one arm under his pillow. I stood there staring at him, trying to make my brain catch up. Behind me, my aunt whispered, "Daniel." I turned. She was standing in the hallway in her robe. "What's wrong?" I didn't want to say it. Saying it made it real. "I think someone's on the dock." My uncle went downstairs with Mark and my dad. They turned on every outside light. The dock was empty. The water around it was flat and black. But there were wet footprints again. This time they weren't just on the porch. They came up the dock, crossed the grass, climbed the steps, and stopped at the back door. Small bare feet, Oliver's size. My aunt started crying. My uncle got angry, because anger was easier than fear. He said someone was messing with us. Some local creep, maybe teenagers from across the lake. He grabbed a flashlight and wanted to search the tree line, but my dad stopped him. "We're calling the owner," my dad said. Mr. Bell answered on the third ring. My dad put him on speaker and explained what happened. There was a long silence. Then Mr. Bell said, "Is everyone inside?" My dad's face changed. "Yes." "Doors locked?" "Yes." "Curtains closed?" My mom stepped closer to the phone. "Why would that matter?" Mr. Bell didn't answer her. He just said, "Leave in the morning." My uncle snapped, "No, you're coming here now. Someone is on your property." Another silence. Then Mr. Bell said something I still hear sometimes when I'm half asleep. "If you see someone you know outside after midnight, don't open the door. Even if they're crying, even if they say your name, especially if they say your name." Then the line went dead. Nobody slept after that. We sat in the living room with the curtains closed and the lights on. The kids stayed upstairs with my grandmother. Every little sound made someone look up. The house creaked. The fridge clicked. Branches brushed the siding. Around 2 a.m., someone knocked on the back door. 3 soft taps. My aunt covered her mouth. Nobody moved. Then came Oliver's voice from outside. "Mom." It was faint, muffled by the door. My aunt made a sound I can't describe. Half sob, half breath. My uncle grabbed her arm before she could move. Again the voice said, "Mom, I'm cold." Upstairs, we heard a floorboard creak. Then Oliver called down from the bedroom, sleepy and confused. "Mom!" My aunt collapsed into my mom's arms. The thing outside knocked again. "Let me in." My dad shouted, "Get away from the door." Silence. Then the doorknob turned. Slowly. Once to the left. Once to the right. Locked. The knob stopped moving. For a few seconds, there was nothing. Then something pressed against the kitchen window. Not hard. Just gently. We had left one curtain open above the sink. I looked before anyone could stop me. Oliver's face was there. But it wasn't Oliver. It was close. So close that for a second my mind wanted to accept it. Same eyes. Same haircut. Same little nose. But the face was too still. The skin looked too smooth, like wet clay. The eyes didn't blink. And the smile looked copied from a photo by something that didn't know what smiling was for. I wanted to laugh at my own paranoia, but the whisper of footsteps from the hallway made me freeze, every nerve screaming that I was not imagining this. Because at that exact moment, upstairs, real Oliver started screaming. My dad, Mark, and I ran up the stairs. Oliver was standing in the bedroom corner, pointing at the window. His window was on the second floor. Outside the glass, something with Oliver's face was looking in. No ladder. No roof beneath it. Just a small pale face floating in the dark beyond the window, dripping water down the glass. Then it slid downward out of sight. My cousin screamed until his voice cracked. We didn't wait until morning. My dad called 911, but the dispatcher said the nearest unit would take time. We were remote, and a storm had knocked a tree across one of the county roads. She told us to stay inside and keep the doors locked. We tried, but the house didn't feel like shelter anymore. At 3:17 a.m., all the lights went out. The kids started crying. My uncle cursed and ran for the breaker box near the laundry room. I followed with my phone flashlight because I didn't want him going alone. The hallway felt longer than it had during the day. The air smelled damp, like lake water had seeped into the walls. When we reached the laundry room, the back door was open. Just a crack. Cold air moved through it. My uncle whispered, "I locked that." From outside, Rachel's voice called, "Daniel?" My stomach dropped. Rachel was upstairs with my mom. The voice came again, closer. "Daniel, help me." I could feel my pulse in my ears, my hands trembling, as I fumbled for the door. Every second felt stretched, like time itself was conspiring against me. My uncle grabbed the door and slammed it shut. Something on the other side slammed back. Hard. The whole door shook. He shouted for everyone to get to the cars. I don't remember all of it clearly after that. Fear chopped the night into pieces. My dad carrying Oliver. My grandmother praying under her breath. Rachel crying while trying to unlock the front door. Mark dropping the car keys and scrambling for them on the floor. Wet footsteps on the porch. Then on the roof. Then inside the wall behind the stairs. We ran out the front, not toward the lake, but toward the gravel driveway where our cars were parked under the trees. The rain had started again, thin and freezing. My bare feet slipped in the mud because I hadn't even thought to put shoes on. Behind us, every window of the lake house reflected light from our phone screens, except the lake-facing windows. Those were black, completely black. As we reached the cars, Oliver suddenly screamed, "That's not Grandma." We all turned. My grandmother was being helped toward the car by my mom, but another shape stood on the porch. It looked like my grandmother. Same white nightgown, same bent posture, same gray hair. It raised one hand and waved, slowly. Then beside it, another figure stepped out. It looked like my dad, then Rachel, then me. One by one, they came onto the porch, dripping lake water onto the boards, wearing our faces like masks they had just learned how to use. My copied face looked directly at me. Its mouth opened, and in my own voice it said, "Stay." That broke something in me. We piled into the cars. My dad reversed so fast he hit a wooden post near the driveway. Nobody cared. We sped down the gravel road with branches scraping the sides and the kids sobbing in the back seat. I looked back once. The house was disappearing through the trees. At the end of the driveway, near the mailbox, Oliver stood in the rain. Not real Oliver. He was in the car beside me, shaking so hard his teeth clicked. The copy just watched us leave, still waving. The police met us near the main road. By then, the storm had picked up, and everything felt unreal under the flashing lights. Officers went back to the house around sunrise. They found the doors locked. No signs of forced entry. No footprints on the porch. No wet marks on the floors. The upstairs windows were closed from the inside. The only strange thing they noted was that the lake was unusually still, even in the wind. Mr. Bell showed up later that morning. He looked older than he had 4 days before. My dad shouted at him. My uncle threatened to sue him. My mom demanded to know what was wrong with the lake. Mr. Bell just stared toward the water. Then he said, "It takes what it can copy." No one spoke. He told us his sister had vanished there when they were children. Not drowned exactly. Vanished. He said she came back to the porch 3 nights later, knocking and begging to be let in while his real sister's bedroom upstairs sat empty. His father opened the door. By morning, both were gone. The house stayed in his family because no one wanted to buy it, and he rented it only in daylight months, only to people who promised not to swim after sunset. He said most people heard things and left early. We were the first in years who stayed long enough for it to start copying. My dad asked why he rented it at all. Mr. Bell didn't answer. Maybe guilt. Maybe money. Maybe he thought warnings were enough. They weren't. We left that same day with half our things still inside the house. Nobody wanted to go back for chargers, clothes, toys, anything. Oliver didn't speak for almost 2 days. My aunt slept beside him for weeks after. I used to love lakes. Now I can barely look at one after dark. People think fear fades if nothing happens for long enough. It doesn't, not really. It just gets quieter. It sits in the back of your mind and waits for small things. A dripping faucet, a wet footprint by a pool, someone calling your name from another room when you know they're not home. Even after escaping, even with the safety of the police lights behind me, a small, cold part of me couldn't stop replaying the face I'd seen from the driveway. The calm, empty eyes wearing my own expression. Last June, I looked up the lake house online. I don't know why. Curiosity maybe. Or that stupid human need to check whether your nightmare still exists. It was listed as a vacation rental again. Same porch. Same dock. Same beautiful lake shining in the afternoon sun. The description said, "Perfect family getaway. Peaceful water views. No swimming after sunset." In the last photo on the listing, someone had taken a picture from the dock facing the house. In an upstairs window, almost too small to notice, there was a boy watching from inside. Blue pajama shirt. Messy hair. One hand raised. Waving. I know Oliver is alive. He's 14 now. He lives with his parents in Wisconsin. I saw him last Christmas. But that thing in the window looked exactly like he did when he was 8. And sometimes I wonder if the lake ever really gives back what it copies, or if it just keeps practicing until one night someone opens the door. Story 5. Have you ever looked at someone you've known your whole life and suddenly felt like you were looking at a stranger wearing their face? That's the only way I can explain what happened at my cousin's wedding. My name is Daniel. I was 26 when this happened, and at the time I was living in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, working a pretty boring office job and trying to save enough money to move into a better apartment. My family is close in that messy, loud way some families are. We don't talk every day, but if there's a wedding, funeral, graduation, or baby shower, everyone shows up. So when my cousin Emily got married that June, I went. I almost didn't. I had work the next morning. The venue was almost 3 hours away, and I wasn't exactly close with the groom. But Emily and I grew up together. She was the cousin who used to sleep over at our house during summers, the one who would make pancakes at midnight and force everyone to watch bad reality shows. She was warm, funny, a little dramatic, but in a sweet way. And I keep saying was because I honestly don't know what else to say anymore. The wedding was at an old countryside venue called Briar House. It was one of those restored estates people rent out for weddings. White columns in front, ivy on the stone walls, a pond behind the reception barn, and a line of thick trees beyond the lawn. It looked expensive in that rustic way, like every cracked wooden beam had been polished and turned into a feature. When I arrived, everything looked perfect. It was warm, bright, and windy. White chairs were lined up outside. There were little jars of wildflowers on every table. Guests were walking around in pastel dresses and suits, drinking lemonade and pretending they weren't sweating. My mom hugged me near the entrance and immediately fixed my tie. "You're late," she said. "I'm exactly on time. That means late for a wedding." That was normal. Everything felt normal. I saw Emily before the ceremony, just for a second. She was standing near the side of the house with her bridesmaids, taking photos. Her dress was simple, fitted at the top, with lace sleeves and a long train that kept catching on the grass. Her hair was pinned back with little white flowers. She saw me and waved. "Danny." That's what she always called me. Nobody else really did. I smiled and waved back. And this is the part I've replayed so many times because I wish I had paid closer attention. She looked like Emily. She sounded like Emily. She had the same smile, the same little nose wrinkle when she laughed. But there was something tired about her eyes. Not sad exactly, just flat. I told myself she was nervous. Brides are tired. Weddings are stressful. That was it. The ceremony started at 4. I sat next to my mom, 2 rows behind Emily's parents. Her father kept wiping his eyes before anything had even happened. Her mother, Aunt Claire, was smiling so hard it looked painful. The groom, Mark, stood at the front with his hands clasped. He looked nervous but happy. I never knew him well, but he seemed like a decent guy. Quiet, polite, the type who said, "Yes, ma'am," without sounding fake. Then the music started. Everyone stood. Emily walked down the aisle with her dad. It was beautiful. I'll admit that. The trees behind the altar moved in the wind. The sun came through the leaves, and for a few minutes it felt like one of those moments families remember forever. But when Emily passed our row, I felt this strange cold pressure in my chest. She looked straight ahead. She didn't look at her mom. She didn't look at me. She didn't even really look at Mark. Her face was calm. Too calm. The ceremony went normally. Vows, rings, a little laughter when Mark dropped the ring and had to bend down to pick it up. Everyone clapped when they kissed. Then, right as they turned to walk back down the aisle, my phone buzzed. At first I ignored it. Then my mom's phone buzzed. Then my aunt's. Then another. Then another. It was like a wave moving through the guests. People started looking down. I pulled out my phone. The message was from Emily. "Don't let him marry her." I stared at it. For a second, I thought it was some weird wedding joke. Maybe part of a prank from the bridal party. But nobody was laughing. My mom leaned over and whispered, "Did you get that too?" I showed her my phone. Her face went still. Before either of us could say anything, Emily and Mark walked past us, hand in hand, smiling. Her phone was not in her hand. It wasn't tucked into her dress. Both hands were visible. She smiled at everyone. Perfectly. Like nothing had happened. My heart sank into my stomach as she passed, and for the first time that day, I had the awful feeling that we were all watching something we didn't understand. At the cocktail hour, everyone was talking about the message. At first, people tried to laugh it off. Maybe she scheduled it by accident. Maybe her phone got hacked. Maybe it's one of her friends being stupid. That's what families do when something impossible happens. They stack normal explanations on top of it until the fear has somewhere to hide. I found my sister Rachel near the bar, holding her phone like it might bite her. "You got it?" I asked. She nodded. "From Emily's number." "Did you ask her?" "She says she doesn't know anything about it." That made me look across the lawn. Emily was standing under a white tent with Mark, greeting guests. She was laughing at something his uncle said. Normal. Bright. Perfect. Too perfect. I told myself I was being weird. Weddings make people emotional. Maybe somebody had gotten into her phone. Maybe an ex. Maybe someone who hated Mark. Then the second message came. That isn't me. It came through while I was standing in line for appetizers. My phone buzzed, then everyone else's around me. I watched faces change one by one. This time nobody laughed. Rachel whispered, "Daniel." I looked toward Emily. She was posing for a photo with Mark's grandparents. Smiling, chin tilted, bouquet held neatly in front of her. The photographer said, "Beautiful." "One more." Emily smiled wider. I don't know why, but that smile made the back of my neck prickle. The street outside the venue looked ordinary, quiet, even comforting, but my gut told me something was off. I'd learned too late that danger often wears a friendly face, and that afternoon, danger was wearing white lace and my cousin's smile. I went to Aunt Claire. She was standing near the guest book, speaking quietly with Emily's father. Her face was pale. "Do you know what's going on?" I asked. She pressed her lips together. "Someone is playing a cruel joke." "Has anyone checked her phone?" "It's in the bridal suite," she said, "locked away with her things." "Then how is it texting everyone?" My uncle gave me a sharp look. "Daniel, not now." That was the first time I felt truly alone in it. Not because nobody else was scared, but because everyone was scared and trying hard not to be. The reception started at 6. Dinner was inside the old barn, which had been converted with chandeliers, long wooden tables, and strings of warm lights hanging from the rafters. It smelled like candles, perfume, and roasted chicken. People took their seats and tried to act like the mood hadn't changed. Emily and Mark entered to loud applause. She danced with him. She danced with her father. She laughed during the speeches. And every few minutes, I caught her looking toward the tree line behind the barn. Not staring, just glancing, as if she expected someone to be standing there. During dinner, Rachel shoved her phone under the table toward me. "Look." She had opened the shared photo album the photographer's assistant had set up earlier, so guests could upload pictures. Someone had just added a few shots from the morning photo shoot. Emily near the pond. Emily with the bridesmaids. Emily standing alone under the trees, holding her bouquet. Then Rachel zoomed in on the background of one photo. At first I didn't see it. Then I did. Behind the trees, half hidden in the shadows, stood a woman in a white dress. Her face was turned toward the camera, and it was Emily's face. I felt the room tilt. "Is that edited?" I whispered. Rachel shook her head. "It just uploaded." I took her phone and zoomed in until the picture became blurry, but there was no mistaking it. Same face, same hair, same dress. Only this woman wasn't smiling. She was staring straight at the camera with a look I still have trouble describing. Not angry, not scared, desperate. I wanted to laugh at my own paranoia, but the whisper of footsteps behind my chair made me freeze, every nerve screaming that I was not imagining this. I turned. Emily was standing behind me. She looked down at the phone in Rachel's hand. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then she smiled. "What are you two looking at?" Rachel locked the screen so fast she almost dropped the phone. "Nothing," she said. Emily kept smiling, but her eyes stayed on me. "Danny," she said softly, "you look like you've seen a ghost." I couldn't answer, because hearing her say my nickname felt wrong now. It was the right voice, the right tone, the right little teasing edge, but it didn't feel like it belonged to her. I excused myself and went outside. The air had cooled, and the sky was turning purple over the fields. Guests were scattered around the lawn, smoking, taking pictures, laughing too loudly. I walked toward the side of the barn where the service entrance was, just to get away from the music. That's when my phone buzzed again. From Emily. "I'm by the old well. Please hurry." I looked up. Beyond the pond, near the trees, there was an old stone well. It had flowers wrapped around it for decoration, probably for photos. I should have gone back inside. I should have grabbed someone. But fear makes you do stupid things when it sounds like urgency. I walked toward it. The grass was damp under my shoes. The music from the barn got softer behind me. Fireflies blinked low over the lawn. When I reached the well, nobody was there. I stood there listening. "Emily?" I whispered. No answer. Then I saw something caught on the rough stone edge. A small white flower pin, the same kind Emily had in her hair. I picked it up, and my hands started trembling. From the trees, a branch snapped. I turned so fast I almost fell. There was a woman standing between the trunks. White dress, dark hair, Emily's face. For 1 second, my brain refused to understand what I was seeing. Then she whispered, "Don't go back in there." It was Emily's voice, but not the calm voice from inside. This voice was shaking. I took 1 step toward her. "Emily?" She flinched at her own name. "She took my phone," she said. "She took everything." My mouth went dry. "Who?" The woman looked past me toward the barn, and her face twisted in fear. "She's wearing me." Then the back door of the barn opened. Light spilled across the grass. The Emily from inside stepped out. She stood there in the doorway, smiling faintly. My heart dropped. For a few seconds, neither of them moved. 2 brides. Same dress. Same face. One by the trees, shaking and barefoot. One by the barn, clean and perfect, holding a glass of champagne. The one by the barn tilted her head. "Danny," she called. "What are you doing out here?" I couldn't move. I could feel my pulse in my ears, my hands trembling as I fumbled for my phone. Every second felt stretched, like time itself was conspiring against me. The Emily near the trees whispered, "Run." The one by the barn started walking toward us. Not fast, just calm, certain. I backed away from both of them, my mind completely blank, and then Rachel appeared behind the barn door. "Daniel," I shouted, "get Uncle Rob." That finally broke whatever spell the moment had over me. Rachel saw the second bride by the trees and screamed. People came running. My uncle, Mark, 2 groomsmen, the photographer. The music inside kept playing for a few seconds too long, some happy song thumping through the barn while everyone outside stood frozen in the grass. Mark looked from one Emily to the other. His face collapsed. The Emily by the barn said, almost gently, "Mark, don't listen to them." The barefoot Emily started crying. "Mark, please." He took 1 step toward the barefoot one. The perfect one's smile disappeared. I don't know how to explain what happened next without sounding insane. The lights in the barn flickered. Every phone around us buzzed at once. Guests inside began shouting. I looked at my screen. 1 final message from Emily's number. She left me in the woods. Then the perfect bride turned and ran. Not toward the parking lot, toward the old house. A few people chased her, but she moved strangely fast through the darkening lawn, dress dragging behind her like smoke. She slipped through a side door of the venue, and for maybe 10 seconds, everyone just stood there in shock. Then the real Emily collapsed. The police were called. The ambulance came. The reception ended in chaos. Emily was alive, but barely able to speak. She said during the morning photo shoot, the photographer had taken her alone near the trees for bridal portraits. She remembered hearing someone behind her say her name. Not yell it, whisper it. When she turned, she saw herself. After that, her memory broke into pieces. A hand over her mouth. The smell of damp soil. Waking up in an old root cellar somewhere behind the venue with her wrists tied in ribbon from her own bouquet. Her phone was gone. Her shoes were gone. She heard the ceremony music start from far away and realized something had gone back in her place. Search teams found the cellar after midnight. It was hidden behind overgrown brush near the old orchard. They found the missing bridal shoes inside, along with Emily's phone, though nobody could explain how the messages were still sending after the battery had died. They never found the other woman, or whatever she was. The venue closed for a while after that, but I heard it reopened under new owners. The official story became a disturbed woman impersonated the bride. That was the version people could live with. But no one ever explained how she looked exactly like Emily. No one explained why she knew childhood nicknames, family jokes, and private things only Emily would know. And no one explained the wedding photos. Because even after the police took statements and everyone deleted posts and the family tried to bury the whole thing, I kept one picture. Not the one from the woods. Another one. It was taken after the ceremony, right before the reception. Emily and Mark are standing in front of the barn doors, smiling. Guests are blurred behind them. It looks normal at first, but if you zoom in on the upstairs window of Briar House, you can see a woman standing inside. White dress, Emily's face, watching the bride below. Even after leaving, even with the safety of police lights flashing across the gravel driveway, a small, cold part of me couldn't stop replaying the face I'd seen in that window. The calm, empty eyes that didn't blink. Emily and Mark didn't stay married. They tried for a while, but how do you come back from something like that? How do you look at your wife walking into a room and not wonder if it's really her? Emily moved away 2 years later. We still talk occasionally, but never about the wedding. The last time I saw her was at Christmas. She seemed better, quieter but better. Before she left, she hugged me and said, "Thanks for believing me." I told her I always would. But as she walked to her car, she stopped at the driveway and turned back. For just a second, she smiled. And I know this sounds cruel, because she's my cousin and I love her. But it wasn't her smile. Not exactly. Sometimes the scariest part isn't proving something happened. It's realizing proof doesn't make you feel safe. Because somewhere out there, someone wore my cousin's face, spoke with her voice, and almost married the man she loved in front of everyone who knew her. And every June, when wedding photos start showing up online, I catch myself looking behind the smiling couple. At the trees, at the windows, at the places nobody else thinks to check.